Okay, good morning everyone. This is going to be a quick video covering the metric system. So the metric system is a form of measuring. You've heard it before, things like milliliter, millimeter, kilometer. Those are all metric system measurements, and they um, are done in units, base units of 10. So, or powers of 10. So, for example, in the United States, we use what is called standard international measurement, and we have things like inches, feet, gallons, miles, ounces, pounds, etc. Um, but the metric system uses things like um, centimeters, millimeter, liter, meter, etc. And the benefits are pretty easy to understand. So going between them is something that going back and forth between different units is a little bit harder in the United States when we do things. And so let me give you an example of that. So in the United States, if I said to you, hey, how many feet are in a mile? And how many ounces are in 5 gallons? And how many, let's say, inches are in a mile? So it's a little bit harder in the United States for us to be able to do that without a calculator. But in the metric system, because everything is in powers of 10, it's a little bit easier to go back and forth between measurements. So let me give you an example of what I mean. All right, so let's set this up. Okay, and what I'm going to basically teach you here, you're going to get a worksheet for on Friday, but it is pretty straightforward what we're talking about here. So um, let's create basically a number line. Okay, let's create like a number line. And in the middle, we're going to have base units, base units. And base units are going to be things like meter, liter, okay? And then we can also have things related to electricity, which is the unit we're about to go into and why we're learning this. So amps, volts, and even one called ohms. Okay, so those are base units. It's just the basic, meter you've heard before. But we can go off of base units and we can go in this direction. And we can go off of base units in this direction. And this is going to be deci. This is going to be centi. This is going to be milli. And this is going to be micro. This is going to be deca. This is going to be hecto. And this is going to be kilo. And so basically it'll be very easy for us to go back and forth. So if I say to you, how many meters are in a kilometer, you will be able to use this number system to be able to figure that out very, very easily. Whereas if I said to you, how many miles are in, or how many feet are in 6 miles, that's a lot harder to do without a calculator. So we won't need a calculator because all we're going to have to do is move the decimal point a number of spaces, and that'll give us the answer. So let's get into some information here, some other stuff that we need to know. So some other things that we need to know is that kilo has the symbol K. Hecto, which we're not really going to use very much, has a H. Deca Okay, deca is dA, but we're also not going to use it really this much. Deci, so you've heard of like decibel. There you go. And centi and milli. And micro is this symbol that looks like an upside down backwards lowercase u. Okay? So these all have powers. So let's talk about the powers. This is 10 to the third power, 10 to the second power, 10 to the first power. Base unit is 1. This is 10 to the negative 1, 10 to the negative 2, 10 to the negative 3, it's a 3, and this one is 10 to the negative 6. So that is going to be very important in your notes. Please make a note of the fact that from here to here is a difference of 3. That is going to come back in a second to make sense to you as to why I need you to mark that down, but please mark that in your notes. So how do we use this type of thing? Well, let me come up with a new screen here. Okay, so our new screen, let's imagine that I wanted to know that I had 6 kilometers and I wanted to know how many meters that was. Okay, so what I could basically do, we take our number line. Okay, here's base units. So base, here's deci, or deca, here's hecto, and here's kilo. Okay, this is deci, centi, milli, and micro. Okay, so we have 6 kilometers. So this is how easy this is to do the conversion. So 6 kilometers is really 6.0 kilometers. So the steps for this are really quite simple. Step 1 is going to be to locate your starting point on the number line. Okay, so in this case, where I'm starting is kilo. Step 2 is going to be identify where you're going to. Where you're going to. So I am going to, in this case, kilo to base units, I'm going to here. Step 3 is identify which direction and how many spaces. From start to finish. So in this case, I am starting at kilo and I'm going to the right and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 spaces to the right. And step 4 is move the decimal to that direction that number of spaces. Okay, so step 1, locate your starting point on the number line here. Step 2, locate where you're going here. Step 3, identify which direction and how many spaces. So to the right, 1, 2, 3 spaces, and 4 is move your decimal in that direction, that number of spaces. So we will do that. Okay. Okay, so I have 6 kilometers. So I have 6.0. But to get from kilo to base, I need to go to the right 3 places. So I'm going to go find my decimal place. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 places, move my decimal place, fill in these little holes with zeros, and my new number, so 6 kilometers equals 6,000 meters. Okay, let's do another example. So let's do this one. I have 33, let's do 320 millimeters, and I want to know how many meters that is. So again, number line, base unit, deci, centi, milli, micro. Remember, this is 10 to the negative 1, 10 to the negative 2, 10 to the negative 3, and 10 to the negative 6. The difference between these two is 3 spaces. We're going to keep coming back to that. And this is just a power of 1. So we're saying I have 320 millimeters, and I want to know how many meters that is. So if I were to track this again, okay, I have 320. That's where I'm starting with. That's my decimal place. And it's asking me, so step 1 was identify where you're starting on the number line. Well, I'm starting at milli. Step 2 was identify where you're going to. Well, I'm going to meters, which is base units. Step 3 was to count the number of spaces you have to go from your starting point to your finishing point. So that is 1, 2, 3 spaces to the left. And then step 4 was to move your decimal 3 spaces, or that number of spaces, in that direction. So I'm going to say, okay, well, my decimal's here, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. So 0.320. So 0.320 meters. Pretty straightforward and pretty simple. And let's imagine that I wanted to do, while we're on the same problem, I said, hey, I want to know how many, if I have 320 millimeters, it equals how many kilometers. Okay, so I want to know how many kilometers. So the same rules apply here. Okay, I have 320. Here's my decimal. I'm going to start at milli. Okay. I'm going to start at milli, which is here. And if you remember, we had deca, hecto, and kilo. Okay, so to do this, we go from step 1, we're identifying where we're starting, which is here. Step 2, we're identifying where we're going to, which is kilo over here. Step 3 was to identify how many spaces and in what direction. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to the left. And step 4 was to move your decimal that number of spaces and in that direction. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Fill in the zeros. So my answer is 0.000320. So 0.000320. Okay, so 320 millimeters is equal to 0.000320 kilometers. Pretty straightforward. So the last one I want to go over with you is micro, because that one is a little bit tricky. So as I indicated, we have micro, milli, centi, deci, base, deca, hecta, kilo. Okay, so if I were going, and again, let's just quickly label. So this is 10 to the third power, 10 to the second power, 10 to the first power, base of 1, 10 to the negative 1, 10 to the negative 2, 10 to the negative 3, oh boy, 10 to the negative 6. Please make sure in your notes you are writing 10 to the negative 6. It's important because that means it's not going to count as one decimal place move between here and here. It's going to count as 3 decimal place moves, because this is a 3 and this is a 6, and the difference of that is 3. So that's going to count as 3 decimal place moves just between here and here. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's just go from base units to micro. If I had 1.2 meters and I wanted to know how many upside down U, oops, sorry about that. 1 second, let's see here. Okay, so I want to make that little upside down U. Micrometers. So I want to know how many micrometers that is. Okay, so same rule applies. I have 1.2. I'm starting at base units. That's step 1. Step 2, where are you going to? I'm going to micro. Step 3, what direction and how many spaces? Well, I'm going to the right. So I'm going 1, 2, 3, right? So that's 3 spaces. But remember, I said that this counts as 3 spaces because it's negative 3 and negative 6. So this is going to be 1 space, 2 space, 3 spaces, 4, 5, 6 spaces. So my decimal has to move 6 spaces, not 4 spaces, not 4 spaces. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4. It is not 4 spaces. It's 6 spaces. Okay? So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Decimal. Fill it in with zeros. So if I rewrite that, I have 1, 2, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, decimal. So 1,200,000 micrometers. Okay? So that's how we go back and forth, how we do micro. And I'll give you one more really quick example using micro. So what if I had 1 million, let's say 123 million micrometers, and I wanted to know how many kilometers that was. So draw this really quickly. This is micro, milli, centi, deci, base, deca, hecto, kilo. Okay? Same rule applies here. Same rule applies. So when I write this number, I have 123 million, and my decimal place is right here. So where am I starting? Step 1, where are you starting? I'm starting here. Step 2, where am I going to? I'm going to kilometers, so I'm going to here. Step 3, what direction? To the left. And how many spaces? Remember that between here and here is 3 spaces. So it's going to be, when I'm counting my spaces, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 spaces. So 9 spaces to the left. And step 4 was just move the decimal that many places. So here's my decimal. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So point 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So that is my answer. 0.123 kilometers. Okay, that's it for the metric system. We'll talk more about this in class, but that is the introduction for today. I hope you enjoy your day, and thank you for watching the video.